Before the age of the twilight set upon the gods, a legend rose to claim his place among them. And even though Kratos sat on the throne as the new god of war, he was haunted by visions of his family. A family he himself murdered. But the hands of death could not defeat him. The sisters of fate could not control him. And on this day, the man, the legend, Kratos, will have his revenge.
My vengeance ends now.
Yassas, and welcome to my technical analysis of the latest remaster from Sony. This time we have the happy chappy Kratos receiving the now obligatory 1080-60 treatment. With the original PS3 version sporting a native 720 and an unlocked frame rate, this may not be as plain a battle as normal. Let battle commence! As you would expect, this is of no change or alteration from the original 2010 release from the PS3. This means that we get to once again take on the role of Kratos, as he is again mightily pissed at Zeus for his betrayal and pretty much anyone else that dares fall within his gaze. Ascending Mount Olympus and continuing on from the events of God of War 2, it is an all-out war against the gods with the help of the Titans, for a while at least. This is for damn sure is a clash, and how, bringing the Kratos chapter to a close. Ascension is a prequel after all. Cast down into the underworld, Kratos loses the chains of Olympus and must use a new weapon, the poignant and in no way obvious Blades of Exile, which he uses to seek his ultimate revenge against the gods, Zeus, and every damn thing that lies in his way. He does not discriminate with anything worthy of death. The battle, scene, combat including combos, puzzles and level design are all complete carbon copies of the original and still amazing release. Having to use your chains or swords in a timed fashion and string together in multiple hit strikes increases your skill reward with hit points. Finding new weapons and magics gives you extra attacks to use on bigger and badder foes. Even on some puzzle areas which take the form of some simple timing ones to more orthogonal type ones, making you work for the next battle to be smacked down on you. And if you can sum this game up in one word, humongous would be it. Its aim was to be God of War's end on an epic scale, to make everything else that had come before look small and low-key, and it achieved it. Even now, the original PS3 release still impresses with some screen-swamping enemies and more grand battles, riding on the back or arm of Kratos as the camera pans back to show the impressive scale and sheer size of the titans and gods you have to face, in name and stature. This surely is a battle of the gods, and Kratos is as badass as ever. Upon its showing at E3 2009, it stole the show, a monster demo in every sense of the word, with the team working long and hard to get the slice up and ready for the showing. But they managed to exceed that demo by a good margin upon release, improving both visual quality, AA and performance. Sony Santa Monica are another big first-party studio and compete with Naughty Dog with the most technically and visually impressive games, a list that has now grown very much since last gen. In God of War, they had the audacious task of having to topple the mighty Uncharted 2, another game for a remaster in 2 months, so please check out my detailed analysis of the entire saga on PS4 in October, which for most studios would be a mountain to climb not unlike Olympus. But not only did Sony Santa Monica equal it, they bettered it and stole back the crown of top tier Sony dev at the time, and there's many studios vying for that at the moment. Even now, the original 5-year-old game on PS4 looks simply stunning, with some of the largest and most detailed characters placed in a real-time game at the time and some time later. Kratos himself was made up of over 22,000 polygons, and it ran this in the game, as you see when up close in all the real-time cinematics and QTE sections that adorn some of the even more extravagant boss battles, or from afar when ant-like on screen. In Ascension, he even has no LOD levels at all. This allows the camera to swoop in and get a full-on nosy at the sumptuous detail, animation and sheer extravagance lavished from the studio's artists. Side by side with the old PS3 game and the new PS4 game, you can see the old game was not lacking and is still not. This remaster uses the exact same models, rigs and geometry from the original, as it would be too costly and problematic to upgrade or change these. with it also not being required as it was not an area that was ever lacking in the first place. But it also shows how clever texture use and UV maps from multiple layers on normal, specular, diffuse and such all add to create such an impressive model without a huge polygon budget. For example, Kratos was nearly half the polygon count of Nathan Drake in Uncharted 2, which again ran with only a 0 LOD version for in-game play and real-time cutscenes. Textures for the original have seen a substantial increase, as would be needed with the resolution receiving over a 200% increase from the PS3 release at 1280 by 720 into the now PS4 1920 by 1080. As you can see from the walls behind or armour of Kratos, the normal map resolution has seen a similar improvement, along with the clothes, walls and other areas all having much higher quality textures. With the original game using 2048 by 2048 maps, the improvement here comes from the higher pixel density on screen, allowing these already high quality assets to shine. But the texture filtering still uses the same trilinear filtering rather than AF. But as the game uses a fixed or artist controlled camera pretty much at all times, this is not such a big an issue as many would think, and does not greatly distract from the detail allowed in the increased textures to be appreciated from the most oblique angle you like. It just gives a slight shimmer or distortion on rare instances, but by and large floors and walls all look cleaner and crisper in the new release. But this increased clarity from the resolution spike is tempered by this shimmer due to no AA being applied on them now, which is touched on later. Lighting has also increased both from shadow resolution quality for characters and shadow maps within the environments, but also the range of light to dark has now been improved, again solely due to the bump in pixels in play. See here in the AO shadow of Kratos' head as he turns, or the far more defined specular map now on the wall. The game also has an additional composite layer like this wall that are mostly due to a streaming bug, but again these pop up on occasions throughout the game, allowing all the asset work to be appreciated. This can be best noticed and demonstrated within the early Underworld section, with the new range allowing a far more linear spread from shadows and reflectance on objects. Cutscenes show the same level of improvement in facial ambient occlusion across nose, face and necks. The aliasing has been improved with the increased map resolution, which in addition to the bump in resolution allows these sequences to look even more impressive in quality. This is helped by the game's pretty much solid 60 FPS performance in these and gameplay, aside the poor choice of the same 720-30 pre-rendered in-engine sequences that jar greatly now as they look much blurred and muddier after coming off the much cleaner real-time ones, even if they sport greater alpha effects and particles at times. With the old game also sporting a 60Hz engine, this meant that for this remaster no changes to animation, keyframing or sample rates was needed, and overall in this regard it never feels a true leap from its older gen release, instead a more refined and polished version, certainly worthy of the remaster tag. This is evident with the real-time scenes running behind on the PS3 due to the dropped frames affecting its runtime. But with the improvements that all mirror the kind of increase you saw throughout the mid to tail end of last gen on multi-platform PC releases, so long as you had the spec, resolution higher, frame rates improved, texture quality, shadow quality and lighting resolution all seeing very nice but not game changing increases overall. And here with the visual presentation of the game it has all that same familiar feel. Everything is now much cleaner, sharper and more refined, with the blur of the older game's 720 res being removed now, well in game at least. But some changes have happened. The MLAA solution, morphological anti-aliasing that worked on PS3, works by sampling multiple areas per pixel. It was another example of how Sony's in-house tech team like ICE create tools, but also how the studios also cross-pollinate this toolset and tricks get shared and used between teams and games. This was its first use in anger, and the solution was not only applied after the E3 showing, which went some way to improving the quality from that already impressive showing, but it was also partly hardware based, in that it was farmed off to the PS3's powerful SPUs away from the GPU, which did not have the resource spare. With the PS4 GPU having a hardware-based AA, MSAA or EQAA options on consoles and AMD GPUs, having a feature in hardware is much faster and more efficient than a software solution, but it takes time to get a fully workable solution in place, and not all options will work with your chosen render path, clock cycle budget or even artist choice. There simply is no one size fits all. But here, without the SPUs and the most likely relatively small program team from Wholesale Algorithms and Tricky Pixels, also just completed the Journey port, among some others, would not have had the time or inclination to migrate this, as the bespoke nature of any SPU code makes for a very complicated translation, as per Naughty Dog's work for The Last of Us. Instead, the much easier solution of using 2x MSAA works well enough to clean up the edges, which are now much better than the original due to its resolution bump, and also now having an edge detection solution applied where before they had none. This is to geometry, I mean. But also the old PS3's morphological sample allowed partially filled pixels to be more accurately detected and appropriately coloured. It means that you get less noise creeping in than the PS4, which has no additional cleanup applied on textures and relies on its amplified resolution increase, delivering an even cleaner display but with some shimmer not seen on the PS3, which comes at more texture blur from this and the lower resolution. This is appreciated if not revolutionary. But you can appreciate the technique on the geometry as seen here with Kratos' armour. But all these things, like everything with the remaster, is all a simple case of programming only. The same, and in some ways to even a lesser degree, can be said for the frame rate increase. With then original sporting the standard method of uncapped frame rate for the God of War games, it means that it spent much of its time running in the mid-40s. Although it very rarely hit or held a stable 60, it ran well enough to feel smooth and responsive in play. The remaster again refines this experience with a now pretty much solid and capped 60 rate, meaning no matter the size of the ass to kick, the game and engine holds a solid tick rate of 16.6 milliseconds across the board, give or take a frame here and there. The lowest dip I captured with my bespoke performance tools is down to a lowly 56. In a stress test over an hour of gameplay, heavy gameplay, QTE and real-time renders, and Medusa was always a head turner, so it seems appropriate. In contrast, the PS3 version across the same set of gameplay analysis never hits this high level, aside the much lonelier interior sections, with its highest achieved rate of 60 hit for a moment, but spending most of the time some 19 or 20 FPS slower into the high 30s. This means that the average frame rate has now increased from 41 to 59, near 20 FPS or 60% greater from this isolated comparison, and across overall play this is indicative of the improvement. If we play the percentage game and throw in the resolution increase, we have a game that is displaying over twice the amount of pixels in at times twice the frequency. A very good and solid display of how to deliver a true remaster with solid metrics. But it also serves a great example of the chase for the hallowed 60 or even 120Hz and what it means, with my frame time real-time graph showing a flat line, meaning that every 60 milliseconds the PS4 is delivering a fresh and solid frame. The PS3 can be seen is never so flat, with each peak showing where a frame has taken longer to be delivered. With them both running a full VSync that stops tearing, this means that the frame time goes from 16 into the next refresh cycle of a display of 33. The wider or more rippling you see this line going up, the more judder or inconsistency you will see or feel on screen. As they get closer, you can see the line looks to move down, with spikes up being drops. The nearer to 30 it is, the line looks more canted here, with spikes down meaning delivered faster than 30. The ideal is a flat, even delivery every 16 or 33, which you can see the smooth change from real time into cutscenes. But so long as you stay around the 40s, as this section from the PS3 release shows, it can still feel smooth and more like 60 than 30. Side by side here in view and play, this section never feels substantially smoother on the remaster, even though over the next minute of this section it will deliver over a third more frames. But it does feel more consistent to a tangible degree, and this helps control somewhat, so is, as always, an appreciated improvement. But as can be seen from my earlier examples, and again here, the game on the PS3 is not always or even most often in this lull of on-screen action, so it is the consistency of performance rather than the increase that makes this remaster a good portion more enjoyable, as it allows the FPS to never once in play or scene hinder your viewer enjoyment, delivering, bar a few isolated instances of my analysis, a rock solid 60 FPS, which feels great. Going back and viewing the old PS3 release again after all this time enabled me to really appreciate its sheer magnificent style and technical wow factor, even more so in hindsight. This is a game that released in 2010 and yet shows off techniques and effects more common now. The sheer scale and damn right jaw-dropping visual punch is helped by the game's fixed camera, allowing the developers to take more liberties with the engine and rendering, so as to best use the resource on screen, something they managed to improve even further still with Ascension, a game that still looks absolutely incredible. It also shows how far ahead SSM were with its extensive use of post effects like in-game depth buffer calculated doff, object motion blur, blended normal maps, procedural animation like the serpent or cloth, animation in general including Kratos' face, all makes a game that even now does not look dated, helped by superb art direction and brilliant cinematography. And this really makes me eager to see just what SSM and the now returned Cory Barlog, fresh from his spell at Crystal Dynamics as he worked on the cinematics for the Tomb Raider reboot, will achieve on the PS4 with its migrated and I am sure vastly improved engine. Kratos, certainly one of David Jaff's greatest inventions, even now is still one of the most impressive characters to grace a gaming screen, and this remaster has allowed us a small taste as to what the huge wealth of talent at the studio will deliver with its first PS4 release. God of War 3 Remastered is yet another solid improvement from a last-gen game, given chance to shine even brighter on much more powerful hardware under a fresh layer of texture light and native resolution, along with the much lauded 60 FPS, meaning any deaths or combo-ending mistakes can firmly fall on your own cack-handed skills than any lag-induced performance. Far more worthwhile to the plethora of new-to-Sony gaming than anyone who had played the original on PS3. But for the £25 or $40 it can be picked up for, the price is better placed to make this a possible library filler for all PS4 owners for the urge to crush some skulls and snap some spines in the cleanest and smoothest version yet, in my humble opinion. Until we are once again thrust into war with the gods and whatever SSM has in store for us in the next chapter. My body is ready. As always, if you enjoyed this or any of my other content, please hit the like and subscribe button. It really helps me immensely and I appreciate each and every one of you that does. Leave your thoughts and your feedback below. I apologise for my voice in this. I have got a chest infection, so I'm trying to struggle through with a dodgy throat. Apologies, and I'll see you guys and girls very soon on the next one.